Hey there, FlossTube. This is Alma coming to you from Long Beach, California. Today is Saturday, March 21st of the year 2020, and this is my 12th FlossTube. So welcome to you all to Alma's Little Wonders. Welcome back to your returning viewers and subscribers. Thank you as ever for your continuing support. And if you're new to the channel, then welcome anyway. We're happy to have you. I hope you like what you see, you find a reason to stay, to subscribe, and continue to follow me on my stitching journey. I hope that you all have been keeping safe and sound during these very unusual times. We've been doing okay. We've been keeping each other entertained. We've found ourselves with a lot of free time, so this has been a very productive stitching week, to say the least. So without further ado, let's get to the stitching. In my Facebook groups for the stitching challenge groups, we're still doing the same themes we've been doing all month. For Enchanted stitching, we are doing Pirates of the Caribbean this month, and for magical stitches, we are doing the Kingdom Keepers Book 2. So we're in week 3 of these. We're gonna have one more week of each, and then we'll move on to something new. So for magical stitches, we only had 3 tasks. Well, I say only. We had 3 tasks because each task had a higher count for the stitch count that you needed to accomplish for each task. So instead of having 4 tasks or maybe 5, since we do have like a bonus task, we only had 3. So the first task we needed to do was we needed to stitch on a project, one project that had an item that started with each of the letters in the word cage, C-A-G-E. So since I couldn't find, okay, I lied. I do have a project. So I have a Flowers of the Alphabet project that I started specifically for these kinds of tasks so that I didn't have to think about it. But right now that project's not really calling out to me. I did consider it because we also have an extra credit assignment where we have to stitch we have to find a project that we have to stitch on an item that starts with each of the letters in the name Chernabog for the villain. And again, like, I could use that project for those tasks, but right now it's not really calling out to me. So I'm using it as a backup for Chernabog, because I do have some. Because for that task you can use several different WIPs, or you don't have to use one single WIP like in the weekly task. So for that one, I'm only using the Flowers of the Alphabet as a backup. It will get some progress, but right now there's so many other WIPs that are calling out to me that I just decided to not think about the alphabet piece for the moment. So since I wasn't doing what the prompt is requesting, I had to go for the penalty stitches for that one, which ends up working for me anyways, because especially in situations like these where I can't immediately think of a project that will apply for that task, I just look at the stitch counts that are required and see which one of my WIPs has that stitch count for a weekly goal. So for example, for the penalty stitches option for that prompt, you have to do 600. I think if you were to use the prompt or the WIP for that prompt, I think it was like 450, but if you couldn't think of something, you had to do 600. Usually penalty stitches are like 150% of the regular stitch count words. It's the morning. It's been a very long week. Trying to hydrate as much as I can. But so I did pull out my Bilbo piece for the first task. This is Bilbo's home, which I found on Etsy. The shop name is Mandrink's Designs, and I started this for my New Year, New Start this year, with the hopes of actually finishing my New Year, New Start for once this year. And I'm also using that for Jessie Marie's WIP Go group. For those of you that aren't aware of what it is, if you are new to this channel, you're watching for the first time, WIP Go is it's Jessie Marie's brainchild. Jessie Marie from Jessie Marie Does Stuff. I believe she did this on her own last year, and this year she just decided to share it with the rest of the world, as it were. And it's pretty much, it's bingo but with whips, hence WIP Go. It's your standard bingo board, 25 slots with a free slot in the middle, and you can set it up however way you want. She's pretty lenient about how you want to do this. Some people are doing multiple slots for each whip, but what I did is I used one slot for each of my whips, and then left several, like this entire row was left blank for new starts. So in the 3 months that we've been doing this board, she's already called out two numbers on the bottom, so I've had to start 2 pieces. I'm low-key hoping that she's not gonna call one of these numbers, but I probably just jinxed myself, because if she does call them out, then I'll just do a small start as opposed to a big project, just for the sake of I have enough whips as it is, guys. Anyway, point being was, this month she called out 18 and 24, and my number 18 was the Bilbo piece. So the goal for this month, because it is a WIP Go focus piece, is to stitch 2,000 stitches. So those 600 stitches could have very easily gone towards that goal. So this is where I am at on the piece. So this is the entirety of the fabric. The 600 stitches were essentially this entire side. I had kind of started to move towards this side up here, but with the 600 stitch goal, I just kept going and finally reached the other side, the other edge. And I actually, again, because I have my own personal goals for this piece, even though the task only called for 600 stitches, I actually did 720 stitches this time around. In order to accomplish my goal of finishing this piece this year, I would have to do 550 stitches a week. And this week was actually catch-up week. I did not, because I didn't stitch on this last week, I don't think. And so this week was just trying to, oh hey, the lighting is a little bit better this side, but yeah, this week was just trying to play catch up. I'm still not caught up, even though I did do 720 stitches. I have like 400 something stitches to go, so I will continue to work on this over the weekend so I can catch up, and then come Monday I can go ahead and just do the regular 550 stitches for that week alone, which again shouldn't be a problem because we found ourselves with lots of time to fill. So that was the first task we had. The second task we had for Magical Stitches was to stitch on a WIP that had words. Again, I suppose I could have used my Flowers of the Alphabet piece. It's just not calling out to me. So I again went for the penalty stitches option for that one and pulled out my Villains piece for that one. This is a pattern that I found again on Etsy. The shop name is Zana Cross Stitch. I don't know if it's Zana. I keep calling it Zana. It might be Z-Ana. I don't know. But she has this in 4 parts. So even though the sample image is all 4 panels together, you do have the option. So when you buy it, you get the 4 separate panels. So if you want to stitch them individually, you can. But I love, like, this is the product image that she had. This is what made me fall in love with the pattern, so I'm stitching it like this. And for that piece, I again went above and beyond the required stitch count for the task, and I ended up doing 688 stitches on this week. So see what I can do with the lighting here. I finished up the face. So last week when I showed you this, I had started on the face. I finished the peach, the skin tone color in the chin, and I actually, it's kind of hard to see, but I did do some of the white that's over here on the left panel, and I obviously, as you can tell, I did start on the crown up here. I'm changing the way that I'm working on this. I used to want to do just color completion, but this isn't actually the bottom of the piece. I just ran out of silky threaded grid. So what I want to do is I just want to work my way down. That way I can continue gridding. But yeah, for this one I am caught up, since I did do over the stitch count. For this one, the goal is to finish that for this first panel. In order to do that, I would have to do 350 stitches a week. So again, those 688 put me well above that. This too was also something that I needed to catch up. I think I missed working on this the first week of March, so I did have to catch up on this. But between those 688 stitches that I did this week, I'm good on that piece, so I would only need to do the regular 350 next week in order to continue being up to date on that piece specifically. The next task we had for Magical Stitches, I actually really enjoyed working. Well, I enjoyed the concept. Working on it was not that enjoyable, but I'll explain. The task was to work on a WIP that would make a good tattoo. So again, it's just not, it's one of those like unusual, I don't know, like I feel like this was a very like unusual or unique, that's a better word, unique prompt that kind of made me think. Like I have really had to kind of like step back and look at my WIPs and like, okay, which one would I want like on my skin? I probably would still not get my piece as a tattoo, but for that one I pulled out an old WIP that I actually hadn't worked on in a long time. This is Sleeping Beauty. Again, Etsy pattern. I think the Etsy shop name is Stitching Fairy Treasures. I'll link it below. All of these patterns I'll go ahead and link below, so that in case it is of interest, you can go ahead and find them for yourselves. But I did start this back in last year. I think I started this in the beginning of January, and it is a beautiful image. So I thought, hey, like it's black and white, so it already kind of lends itself to being a tattoo, and then just the pop of color I think would just be an interesting addition to it. So I did work on this for that prompt, which I don't know if you follow me on if you do follow me on Instagram, then you'll have seen this on both of my Instagram story and my post. This is a very confetti heavy piece, and as much as I enjoyed working on it, it was too much. Like doing 300 stitches on just a bunch of confetti was very hard to do. And then I not only did it for the 300 stitches, but I also ended up doing it for the Chernobog extra credit piece. So I put that C was for crown. So the C in Chernobog was for the crown that she wears. But the focus area right now is just this top page right here. I'm almost done with it, which is another reason that I am gonna keep working on this, is because as I mentioned, the theme for March for me this year is to go ahead and try to do or finish as many of my goals as possible. Kind of like a March Madness nod. I want to finish as many goals as possible. For this piece, the goal for the entire year is to finish the next page. So this is the page divider, so I really only have to finish this little whatever, you know, sporadic stitches are there. I did sit down and calculate how much I had left to do, once I did finish both the weekly task and the extra credit assignment, I only have about 200 more stitches to go in order to complete the page. So I will go ahead and continue to work on this week, so I can go ahead and get that taken care of, and then that'll be one goal that, you know, I can cross off the list and move forward with other goals. And if I do end up working on this again, I will. It is on my WIP Go board, and it hasn't been called this month. For WIP Go, I put down that I would put 500 stitches on it. So, you know, once it is called, then that'll be an additional 500 stitches that I'll put into it, which will take me to the next page. So yeah, so I'm not mad. Again, it is a very nice piece. It's just very confetti heavy, so it's really hard to work on it for extended periods. Like 300 stitches was too much. I think working on it as I did for the extra credit assignment, which is just, you have to do 100 stitches for each letter in Chernobog. So C is for crown. I did 100 stitches, and I do have it lined up for the R as well and the A. So R will be for Rose, the rose that she has here on her hair, and also like her nickname is Briar Rose, and A is for Aurora, because obviously that's her name. So those will be the 200 stitches that I have left to do in order to finish the page. So hopefully, fingers crossed, by next week you'll see a page finish on this. So that was it for the magical stitches assignments this week. For Enchanted stitching, we are still doing Pirates of the Caribbean. The first assignment we had to do was, again, one of those assignments that kind of makes you think. So right now we're pretty much, again, just about 3/4, if not more, into the movie. The first assignment we had to do was to stitch on something that had an item that we would use as ammo for the cannons, because in the movie, when they're on the face-off against the Black Pearl crew, they run out of cannonballs, and they have to think fast and think of other things to use. So I said that in that situation, I would go ahead and do glassware and china, because once they're cut, they're sharp and they might do damage, but they might just shatter themselves. But point being is I picked up teacup display for that task. This is another piece that I haven't really picked up in a while, which is why I decided to go ahead and use it this time around, because this is slated for a finish this year. And this was supposed to be one of those like quick finishes. So I haven't really been keeping up with this, and it's supposed to be finished this year. So I haven't finished the piece, but once I did 500 stitches this week, because I am using it for one of the ultimate tasks in magical stitches, which you need to do in 500 stitch increments, and that led me to a border finish. Yay! So again, I'm not done with the piece yet, but at least I'm done with the border. And I'm partially done with the border. The border has a lot of back stitching on all around it for the stems with flowers. So I'll save the back stitching to the end. But next up, I'll go ahead and start working on there's like an additional border that goes all the way around on the inside of the square. So that'll be next. So I do want to go ahead and pick this up again this week, because again, in the theme of the March Madness theme that I'm going with this month, I want to finish as much as I can. So that is one of the things that I do want to get it over with. The next thing we had to do for magical stitches, enchanted stitching, in relation to the scene where Jack and Elizabeth are stranded on the island, and Jack tells Elizabeth about his previous experience being stranded on the island. We were supposed to stitch on a WIP that is related to how you would have your legend go. So the legend of Jack Sparrow's escape is that he used sea turtles to make a raft and sailed off away from the island, when in reality all he did was drink rum and wait for a merchant ship to like pass along, and then just left with them. So it's not that exciting. But so I said that for my legend, I would want people to think that I used magic to get off the island. So we do have some sort of magical aspects in the movies, especially in the later movies. Tia Dalma comes in, she's voodoo mistress, and then we also have mermaids coming in, and then later on there is some sort of mystical, magical aspect in the series. So I didn't think it was that far-fetched. But I of course picked up Hogwarts for that prompt. This is Hogwarts Castle at Night. This listing I found on Stitching Girl's Etsy shop. It's no longer listed. So you might find some other artists that have the same image charted, but she doesn't have it available anymore. And for that one, I'm still working on it. But I went ahead and I did the 250 stitches needed for that prompt. So this is where I am at so far. And right now I am working towards a partial page finish. So this right now I'm just focusing on this bottom corner right here. I'm actually really close, guys. I really tried to go ahead and get the page finished last night, but it was too much. I literally just have this much that much left to do in order to get the partial page. So that's definitely happening today. And the reason why I am wrapping my Hogwarts sweater today is because this weekend is House Pride weekend, which is a weekend where we dedicate to showing our house pride. So Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw each gets a day. It started yesterday, started Friday, and it goes until Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I think yesterday was Hufflepuff, maybe wrong. I'm pretty sure Ravenclaw is tomorrow. Not quite sure. I'll have to look at the details. But you are more than welcome to participate. Kim of Spartan Stitcher on Instagram, she also has a FlossTube, so I'll go ahead and link hers below. And Zakia of Lady Wing Designs, I know, is also participating. So we're all working on our Hogwarts themed projects this weekend. I only have the one, so I'm only working on Hogwarts Castle, so it's going to get a lot of progress this weekend. And I know that Kim is working on her Chilton Crafts chart. She's working on a sepia tone Half-Blood Prince artwork piece that Chilton Crafts has on their website. And Zakia is, I think she has several Harry Potter themed projects. She too is also doing the same image, the Castle at Night. She also has some Harry Potter themed knitting patterns. But I think she said she was just gonna focus on the letters from Hogwarts Stitch Your Own Adventure style that came out this year. So again, it doesn't matter what craft you do, it doesn't matter what pattern you do, you can just go ahead and participate. All you have to do is, if you do post on Instagram, just do the hashtag House Pride SAL for style. And again, it goes until Monday, so if you are watching this when it comes out on Saturday, you still have a few days to go ahead and join in. So yeah, so I look forward, I'm looking forward to getting the page finished and just keep going on Hogwarts Castle this weekend. But going back to the Pirates of the Caribbean tasks, we had one more task that we had to do, which was, again, so we're back to the scene where Jack and Elizabeth are stranded on the island. Elizabeth ends up piling up all the rum and pretty much all the supplies, and she sets it on fire in order to get the SOS signal, I suppose, so they can be rescued. So we needed to work on a WIP that had an item that could be burned to use for an SOS signal. And for that one, I brought up my Change of Seasons pattern from Mystic Stitch, which funny story. So if you saw my my video last week, you'll know that originally when I started this with Zakia of Lady Wing Designs. The original purpose was to start it on Leap Day and finish it by next Leap Day, but it was only 2 weeks in, and it was just one of those things like, oh my gosh, what have we gotten ourselves into? And again, if you saw my video last week, then I mentioned that I was going to go ahead and suggest to her to extend it to the following Leap Day so that we had twice the amount. So instead of 4 years, we had 8 years to finish the WIP. Because the daily stitch count, or the weekly stitch count for that piece in order to achieve the 4-year completion goal was going to be almost 1,000 stitches. It was like 920 something, which is a lot. for one project, it's a lot. So, and again, this was week 2. This was just 2 weeks into working on the project, and it was like, this is madness. So I mentioned on my video that I was going to suggest to extend it. What I didn't know was that she recorded her video the same day, and she said the same thing. In her video, she said, I'm going to talk to Alma and see if we can extend it so that we can have half of it done in 4 years. So of course I watched her video later that day, and I just reached out to her like, oh my god, I said the same thing this morning. So it's a done deal. We're officially extending our deadline for 8 years instead of 4. Having said that, that will cut down our stitch count, our weekly stitch count, to like 480 something stitches, and that doesn't count. That's assuming we're starting from scratch. When I made the calculations, I just did, okay, like we have to finish 1/8 of this piece by the end of February next year. So that's 480 stitches, but that's assuming that we hadn't done anything. So obviously, since I've already worked on this piece so much, it's going to be lower. I usually update my stitch count goals at the end of the month, so once the end of March comes around, I'll go ahead and calculate specifically how many stitches I have to do. But since we did cut down the stitch count, I only did 300 stitches on this week. I reached the bottom of the page, so this is the bottom of the first page right here. So I'll continue to work on this one color until I finish that page, and then I'll fill in the rest of the colors. Although I don't, oh yeah, I think I will go ahead and fill in the rest of the colors just for the sake of getting that page completion. Since I am doing Stitch from Stash this year, for Stitch from Stash, it's a Facebook group where, in an effort to kind of motivate us to kind of work with what we already have, as opposed to buying and starting a bunch of new projects, there's like a credit system that is used, and I use quotation marks because there's no actual money involved. No one is giving us a budget, a monthly budget for our supplies and our stitching purchases. No one is giving us money for any time we finish something. So that is something that you get credit for, is for full coverage pieces that have, like, you know, pages. I think it has to have more than 10 pages, not sure, but you do get credit for each page that you finish. And then you obviously, for, you know, regular non-full coverage projects, you can do partial credits, but sometimes it is easier, especially if they're smaller. It's just easier to do the claim credit for the entire finish. So for the sake of getting that credit sooner rather than later, I'll go ahead and just finish the page. So once I finish this color, I'll just move on to the next color in the page, and then just keep gridding until, see if I finish an eighth of this piece before the end of February next year. But yeah, I do enjoy working on it. Even stitching those 300 stitches went by really fast. The only reason I stopped is because I do have other goals that I needed to take care of. Which brings me to the next piece that I worked on. And this was just besides, so that was the end of the weekly assignment for Enchanted stitching. The next piece that I did focus on, I used for a couple of additional assignments that we have in the stitching groups. For Enchanted stitching, we have to work on a piece that has a woman in it, and we have to put 2,000 stitches on it. And then there's a group team effort event in magical stitches where we all had to put in 1,000 stitches. So for both of those, I am using my Moon Charmer piece. This is a Heaven and Earth Designs chart by based on Amy Stewart's artwork. And I always say it's Moon Charmer. It's technically Moon Charmer Select a Size. I believe this is when you make a request for different dimensions. So if you like a chart and you want it in a different size, I think you can request that it be modified. I just thought that it was smaller than the original. I was like, okay, I'm doing that one. But I did go ahead and put in over 1,000 stitches on it. I put 1,042 stitches on it, which, believe it or not, doesn't bring me up to date. I still have to do, I think, 200 stitches in order to be brought up to date. So I will go ahead and work on this a little bit today or tomorrow. But if you saw my Facebook or Instagram post, then you'll know that those 1,000 stitches brought me a page finish. Woohoo! So I finally finished this. It's like between this right here, and obviously this is the bottom right here of the page. But yeah, I finally I just powered through and got all the confetti done. It wasn't much. It was just, you know, the stars that you see in the night sky. So yeah, so I'm now going to move back to this side right here. This is another page right here. The yearly goal for this is to reach 50,000 stitches, and that page finish brought me to 25,400 stitches. So I still have quite some ways to go. The one thing that I'm kind of worried about now is that for WIP Go, this is on my WIP Go board. For WIP Go, the goal that I put for the month, or the month that it's called, I put down that I was gonna get a page finish. So that's another reason why I considered just keeping, that's why I had this gridded. So I did grid all the way to the end of the piece over here. I considered just keeping going. I considered just keep going to the edge, because I did want to get that row finish. But then I remembered that I had that page finish goal for the month that it was called. So I said, okay, I'm gonna just go back to a page that I've already started on and work on that, so that if and when the time comes and this piece is called, I don't have to scramble to finish an entire brand new page, potentially. I am using the large format of these charts. Heaven and Earth Designs charts come in either regular format or large format, which before Pattern Keeper it made a difference, because at that point, you know, I would just print out the pages, and you know, obviously with large format pages the pattern was easier to see. Regular charts have the dimensions for each pattern are usually like 80 by 100. With this one, it was 80 by 62. So in terms of credit for Stitch from Stash, you get $15 for 8,000 for every 8,000 stitches. So I had to like do a percentage of that, essentially, since it wasn't the full 80 by 100. But yeah, I'm very excited. That really kind of motivated me to keep going. and the change of pace, like the fact that I am going to be working on something that's a little different than Night Sky, is also kind of motivating me to keep going on it. And I will, because as I mentioned, the task for Enchanted Stitches calls for 2,000. I only have 1,000, so I have this week to get the next 1,000 done, which I kind of need anyways, because the stitch count, the weekly stitch count, in order to meet the goal, which is to reach 50,000 stitches, that would be 650 stitches per week. So again, doing the 1,000 stitches is beneficial, because I still have to catch up. I have about 200 more stitches to do, which already brings me to like 850 stitches. Like, so again, I try to match the prompts or the tasks to a project that will fit the goal for the stitch counts. The last piece that I worked on this week, again, this didn't have any particular tasks involved, except for the ultimate task that I'm using it for in Magical Stitches, which you have to work in 500 stitch increments. Again, this is one of my main goals this year, is to finish this piece all together. This is my MCG Textiles kit, Tinkerbell and Peter Pan Fly to Neverland. This is based on Thomas Kincaid's art. This is my oldest WIP. Another reason why I want to get it over, not get it over with, but just get it finished, is because I started this in June of 2013. So it is long overdue for a finish. And the ultimate task that I'm using it for calls for, I think it's 4,000 stitches. So I have, I think I have one more increment of 500 to go, maybe two. But this week I focused on this area right here at the bottom. This is what it looks like in its entirety. I am 77% done with this. Actually, it's a little bit over because I still haven't accounted for what I had already done over here at the bottom. So, so when I picked this up this year, I already had this. I don't know what it is about the camera today, but like I'm like showing you guys, and I keep I keep getting cut off. I'm like slouching. But I had already done this section right here, and I haven't actually counted to see how many stitches that is. But for this week I did 500 stitches, which was essentially this section right here. I'll go ahead and keep going on this section until I hit the tower. As you can see, the tip of the tower is right here. This is Big Ben. So once I hit the tower, I think I'll go back and finish this side. But we'll see where the mojo takes me. But yeah, I'm very excited. This is just one of those projects that I put aside for a long time because it was a little hard to work on. This entire bottom corner where the city is, there was just so much detail I couldn't deal. There was a lot of things to do. You've got a bunch of little French knots over there and outlining for the buildings. It was a lot. So I remember just put it aside for forever and ever. So that is what I worked on this week. Again, just lots of free time now. It's very hard to look for a job when half of the world is dead on its tracks. So we'll see. I'm still looking, I'm still applying, I'm just not getting responses back. And so it'll work out, I'm sure, but as of right now, I know that that's the situation, so we'll see what comes around. This week, in terms of plans, they haven't, again, it's only Saturday morning, they haven't released the next prompts for the challenge groups yet, but I already have an idea of what I want to do. So again, I'm trying to match the projects according to the stitch count, to the goal, to the tasks. As I mentioned, for March, I'm kind of doing the March Finishing Madness event that's on a second Stitch Mania group. I'll link both below. There's two Stitch Mania groups. One has like a bracket of years attached to the name from when it started to this year. It's like 2017 to 2020. That's the one that does the credit system for finishing, and obviously if you do end up buying things, then that takes away from your budget. But then there's a second group which they still do the whole theme of, you know, stitching from what you have as opposed to buying and new things, but they don't necessarily do that level of accountability, I suppose. They just kind of do, and they do have events going around all year round, depending on what month it is. So they're the ones that are doing the March Finishing Madness event in anticipation of Mania. And for Mania, I kind of had this idea last night of what I wanted to do. Again, I originally was going to just finish all the things, but since I'm already doing a lot of that, again, Moon Charm, I already finished a page, and I'm pretty close to finishing a page for Hogwarts. I'm thinking that for Mania, I'm going to focus on my non-full coverage projects, because what I noticed was that all the stitch count goals, they were much easier to calculate for my full coverage, mostly because of Pattern Keeper. As a result, I've kind of been neglecting a lot of my non-full coverage, like you saw with Teacup Display. I picked that up and finished the border. So I'll still continue to work on my non-full coverage kits, but for Mania, I think what I'll do, if I can't think of anything better that inspires me as much, what I want to do is, because I have, as of today, I only have four kits that I'm working on. I have Teacup Display, the stacked teacups, the gold collection, the Dimensions Gold Collection kit. I've got my Riolis kit, Lilac Evening, and well, this one is also, it is full coverage, but it's one of the ones that I'm not really particularly focused on right now, is my watercolor florals. So my goal right now is to go ahead and do, unless I start another kit, which I may, who knows, I'm not gonna say never, but the goal right now is to go ahead and focus on one kit for each week of May. But we'll see. Again, I may, if I keep going on Teacup Display, I may finish it, I may start another kit, who knows. As of right now, that is the plan. Mania is only 4 or 5 weeks away, so it's not that long either. But we'll see. Again, that's just something that I came up with last night. I don't hold me to it, because I may change my mind. Again, a lot can happen in those 5 weeks. But yeah, that is all I have to show you for today. Again, I hope that you continue to stay safe, keep clean, and yeah, just power through these crazy times. I know that stitching is my escape from it all, which is why I try to not talk. about outside events. But again, the reason why I was able to get so much progress done is because we have so much free time now. But yeah, I hope that you guys continue to be safe, and until I see you next week, happy stitching, guys.